As soon as Lin Shujia answered Mu Qianfan's call, he anxiously said, "Young master, the Li family is playing tricks behind the scenes, and something unexpected happened with the Su family's project." Mu Qianfan frowned. "Are you sure it's the Li family?" Lin Shujia nodded vigorously. "Yes, we just found out. They went to see Su Haifeng early this morning, and now he wants to cooperate with the Li family." Mu Qianfan's frown deepened. "Did you find out what conditions the Li family offered them?" "This project can go to anyone, but absolutely not to the Li family." Lin Shujia replied, "We are investigating, but the Su family is tight-lipped. We haven't found anything yet, and several other projects we were discussing have also been affected." Mu Qianfan glanced towards the hospital room. "Then how much longer can you hold out?" Lin Shujia said with difficulty. "A day or less. We have no foundation here." Mu Qianfan's eyes suddenly turned cold. "I understand. I'll rush back as soon as possible." When Jean saw him hang up the phone and stepped forward, "Young master, are you really going to wait until young madam is well before returning?" Mu Qianfan didn't answer. Instead, he walked and instructed, "Have Aunt Lin prepare some suitable food for her and send it over." Watching him re-enter the hospital room, when Jean sighed, suddenly recalling a phrase, femme fatale. When Mu Qianfan pushed the door open, he was leaning against the headboard, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" Mu Qianfan asked. "Thinking about when you'll go back." He looked up at him. "Do you really not want to see me?" Mu Qianfan felt a pang of disappointment. "No, I just don't want you to be so tired." He sighed slightly. "Although you've never told me, I know you must be very busy." Mu Qianfan pulled a chair to the bedside and sat down. "So you want me to go back now?" He nodded. Go back and handle your work first, then come back with peace of mind. I'm your wife, not a femme fatale." Mu Qianfan looked at Hiyu and fell silent. Hiyu also said nothing more, quietly meeting his gaze. After a long while, Mu Qianfan finally spoke. "Okay, I'll go back after you've had lunch." At noon, Aunt Lin came to deliver food for Hiyu. When Jean specifically asked her to prepare a portion for Mu Qianfan, as his thoughts were entirely on Hiyu, and he hadn't eaten anything yet. Learning that Mu Qianfan had gone hungry with her until now, Hiyu felt very apologetic and quietly complained, "I was asleep. Why didn't you eat? What if you get sick from hunger?" Although it was a complaining tone, Mu Qianfan heard Hiyu's concern and smiled. "Missing one meal won't hurt. At most, I'll just eat a bit more at lunch to make up for it." After lunch, when Jean had already booked Mu Qianfan's return flight, and Aunt Lin had packed her things and left, only the young couple remained in the hospital room. Hiyu unknowingly recalled the kiss in her dream last night, and her face couldn't help but flush. She had thought it was a dream, but now, thinking back, it must have been real. Seeing Mu Qianfan about to leave, and not knowing when he would return, a sense of reluctance welled up in her heart. She didn't know when, but seeing him brought her peace of mind. Lowering her head, she bit her lip, hesitating for a long time. Hiyu finally gathered her courage, looked up and said, "Mr. Mu, could you come here for a moment?" Mu Qianfan walked over and leaned down to look at her. "Are you feeling unwell somewhere? Do you want me to call a doctor?" Before he could finish, Hiyu reached out and wrapped her arms around his neck, quickly leaning in to give him a light peck on the cheek, then released him. Her face beat red. Hiyu actually kissed him first? This return trip was full of surprises indeed. Was it true that distance makes the heart grow fonder, and a short separation is better than a new marriage? Seeing her shy expression, Mu Qianfan really wanted to hug her and kiss her madly, but he restrained the impulse. It was rare for her to be so proactive while conscious. He couldn't scare her. He lowered her head and quietly instructed, "Be careful on the road. Remember to eat and sleep on time over there. Don't just focus on work."
I
"I'll wait for you to come back." "Okay." Mu Qianfan didn't dare to cup her face and kiss her, so he simply kissed her on the head. "I'll deal with things over there as quickly as possible and come back. I won't make you wait too long. Have a safe trip." Hiyu's face was red to her earlobes, and Mu Qianfan could see it clearly even with her head down. To save her embarrassment, he quickly left the hospital room. Hiyu only lifted her head when she heard the door close. Seeing only herself left in the room, she raised her hands to cover her face, too shy to face anyone. How could she have done something so impulsive?
Since she did it, why be so shy?
He wasn't just anyone, he was her legal husband. Because of this kiss, he was dazed for a long time. She didn't regret it, but she found it incredibly embarrassing. Mu Qianfan, however, was happy all afternoon because of it. Even the Li family's affairs couldn't make him frown again. Lin Shujia went to the airport to pick up Mu Qianfan, expecting him to have a stern face, but instead saw him beaming, and for a moment thought he was hallucinating. After confirming it was real, he specifically called when Jean to ask what was going on, but even she didn't know, as she wasn't in the hospital room at the time. Last night, After Li Junyi deduced that it was Mu Qianfan's people who knocked him out and took Hu away, he immediately reported it to his father, Li Jiaming. Li Jiaming usually didn't pay much attention to Li Junyi, thinking he was more trouble than he was worth and only caused problems. However, upon learning that the other party was Mu Qianfan, he immediately took action. Mu Qianfan had provoked Li Junyi at the engagement banquet, which Li Jiaming could still overlook, but then he also provoked Li Shui and snatched their clients. Not only that, but he finally escalated things, taking over the Jiren company, which the Li family had coveted for a long time, trying to give them support, completely disregarding the Li family. How could Li Jiaming let such an arrogant person go? At the time, he had made harsh threats, vowing that Xingyue Media and Mu Qianfan would have no footing in Linjiang. Now he even dared to abet an assault on his son. It was simply too much. Mu Qianfan had not been in Linjiang for long, barely managing to establish a foothold, and was just starting to expand his market in Jinghai. Naturally, he couldn't compare to the Li Group, which had a strong branch office. Learning that Mu Qianfan was negotiating a real estate development project with Su Haifeng, he immediately sent his eldest son, Li Yuankai, to find Su Haifeng, offering him absolute financial incentives. Under the temptation, Su Haifeng immediately agreed to cooperate with them, leaving Mu Qianfan out of the picture. Unfortunately, ideals were plump, but reality was lean. As the saying goes, a joyful event lifts the spirit. Having received a sweet kiss from his beloved wife, Mu Qianfan was not only invigorated, but also remarkably efficient in his work. In just 3 short days after returning to Jinghai City, he not only discovered the conditions the Li family offered Su Haifeng but also successfully persuaded Su Haifeng to drop the idea. The Li family's scheme failed, and they spent days investigating without finding out what benefits Mu Qianfan had given Su Haifeng, only being able to watch them sign the contract. Mu Qianfan was busy in Jinghai City, and he wasn't idle in Linjiang City either. After spending a day in the hospital, she returned to continue her training, and the results of her many days of hard work were beginning to show. Yi Luo, seeing Hiyu's rapid progress, no longer dared to underestimate her. In fact, she even started to feel a sense of smug pride, having taken on someone who was not only attractive but also hardworking. As Hiyu's teacher, once Hiyu made a name for herself, Yi Luo's own value would naturally rise, making it much easier for her to pave the way for her daughter. She offered rare praise and encouragement to Hiyu. "You're very talented. Winning an award at the competition will be no problem. As long as you perform well, the championship is yours for the taking." Hiyu remained unperturbed by either praise or criticism. "I will do my best and won't let down the company's efforts in nurturing me." She especially couldn't let down Mu Qianfan's painstaking efforts. Yi Luo felt a bit disheartened when Hiyu didn't mention her contributions. Company's nurturing, she thought. It was I who had painstakingly nurtured her all along. Hiyu paid no mind to Yi Luo's suddenly changed expression. She had always been good at discerning who genuinely cared for her and who wanted something from her. Yi Luo trained her diligently partly due to company assignments and partly for her own benefit. Only Mu Qianfan was truly for her. The Li Group's schemes came to nothing, and Li Junyi, unable to swallow his frustration, came to find Hiyu again. To prevent Hiyu from falling into another trap, Mu Qianfan had already told her about Li Junyi's plot from that night when he returned. Seeing him now, Hiyu couldn't express how much she detested him. Li Junyi didn't know that his plan from that night had long been discovered by them. He still thought when Jean had knocked him out simply to take Hiyu away. So, he continued to play the role of the infatuated lover. "I've given you enough time, haven't I? Have you thought about what happened last time?" Hiyu sneered inwardly. "I've thought about it." Li Junyi was overjoyed. "Then how about we get things done tonight?" Hiyu crossed her arms. "Huh, how many people are you planning to find this time?" Li Junyi was confused. "What do you mean? How many people?" Hiyu gave a mocking smile. "Weren't you going to prepare a grand gift for me?" "What? You're not willing to spare the expense this time?" Li Junyi's face changed dramatically and he stammered. You knew? Impossible. How could you know?" Hiyu cast a cold glance at him and retorted, "If you don't want others to know, don't do it." Li Junyi caught up to her. "Then aren't you afraid I'll really kill that man surnamed Mu?" Hiyu replied without turning her head. "Go ahead and try. If you can kill him, that's your skill. If he dies, he deserves it, and it's only because he's not as capable as you." Li Junyi sneered. "So, you don't care about him at all. I wonder what expression he'd have if he heard that." Hiyu turned to look at Li Junyi. "Did I forget to tell you that these were his exact words for me to convey to you?" "You." Li Junyi gnashed his teeth in anger. "You're playing with me? So what if I am? Are you going to drug me again?" Hiyu said arrogantly. "Want to relive the taste of that chop to the neck last time?" Ever since Hiyu's incident last time, when Jean had specially dispatched 2 bodyguards to protect her in secret. Upon receiving news of Li Junyi's appearance, she rushed over immediately. However, before she could arrive, Hugh had already dealt with Li Junyi. The bodyguards relayed the situation to her, and she immediately thought of calling Mu Qianfan to report. She could guarantee that young master would be very happy to hear this, perhaps even breaking into a silly grin. She suddenly longed to see young master's silly grin. Should she ask Lin Shujia? To catch a glimpse of Mu Qianfan's silly grin, when Jean called Lin Shujia, confirmed he was with Mu Qianfan, and then instructed him to secretly take a photo when the time came. She then dialed Mu Qianfan's number. After explaining how Hiyu had handled Li Junyi, she indeed heard his delighted laughter. Mu Qianfan didn't avoid Lin Shujia. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling window with his phone, looking rather silly compared to his usual serious demeanor. Lin Shujia stared in amazement. After a while, he took out his phone, snapped the picture, and immediately pretended nothing had happened, returning to his work. He didn't dare send it to Wen Jin just yet. Mu Qianfan disliked being photographed, which was why his identity had been well hidden for so many years. Candid photos were absolutely one of his biggest taboos. However, Mu Qianfan had seemingly been engrossed in his phone call, appearing not to notice being photographed. But after hanging up, he walked directly up to Lin Shujia. Without a word, he extended his hand towards Lin Shujia, his slightly furrowed brows announcing his displeasure. Lin Shujia's face changed. He honestly handed over his phone. Young master, Xiao Jin asked me to take it. If you're going to punish someone, don't forget her. He and Wen Jin had always been the best of frenemies, never holding back when playing pranks or arguing with each other. Mu Qianfan took the phone, entered his birthday to unlock it, and seeing those silly photos of himself in the album, his expression turned very odd. He actually made such a silly face? How could he show his face in public after this? Delete, delete, he had to destroy all evidence. Mu Qianfan quickly deleted the photos, then emptied the recycle bin for a complete deletion. After deleting, he didn't forget to ask, "Do you have any backups?" Lin Shujia shook his head like a rattledrum and held up his right hand with 4 fingers extended. Young master, I swear to heaven, I absolutely have no backups. Only then did Mu Qianfan toss the phone back to Lin Shujia. Lin Shujia asked suspiciously, Young master, how did you find out? He was quite sure that young master had been earnestly talking on the phone with Wen Jin at the time, completely unaware of him. Mu Qianfan didn't speak, merely pointed to the floor-to-ceiling window. Though not very obvious, he had indeed seen Lin Shujia's every move reflected in the glass. Lin Shujia. He had noticed that almost invisible reflection in the floor-to-ceiling window at all. Are you home yet? Not long after, Mu Qianfan called Hiyu. Just arrived. Hiyu collapsed on the sofa from exhaustion, forced herself to sound energetic, not wanting him to detect her fatigue. Her looks and talent were indeed good, but the training results she achieved today were absolutely inseparable from her own efforts. Are you very tired? Mu Qianfan still discerned her weariness. I'm fine, much better than in the beginning. Hiyu felt a slight blush, almost looking around to see if there were any cameras in her home. Don't overwork yourself. There's still time to prepare. Mu Qianfan's voice was incredibly gentle. Hiyu's heartstrings were easily tugged again. She whispered, You too. No matter how busy you are with work, remember to eat and rest. Hiyu, Mu Qianfan called softly. Hiyu inexplicably grew nervous, subconsciously tightening her grip on her phone. I miss my dear wife. Mu Qianfan's tone was strange, sounding a little wronged. I miss you too. Hiyu couldn't say these words, awkwardly changing the topic. I'm about to prepare dinner. Although Mu Qianfan couldn't see Hiyu's expression at that moment, he was certain that his little darling wife must be blushing, because she was just that innocent. Mu Qianfan's business trip this time was very long. He had several major projects to discuss, and intended to establish Jinghai, a city superior to Linjiang in all aspects of development, as his new base of operations. He had originally set his sights on Jinghai City, but went to Linjiang first for Hiyu. Now that Hiyu was his wife, he could finally go to Jinghai with peace of mind. The Li family failed to prevent Mu Qianfan's collaboration with Su Haifeng, and upon learning that he had several other major moves planned in Jinghai, the Li family members were furious, almost to the point of exploding with rage. He Qinghua, learning that Mu Qianfan hadn't returned yet, seized the opportunity to contact Hiyu. Receiving a call from He Qinghua on a rare leisurely weekend, especially one asking if she had time and demanding to meet her out, instantly put Hiyu in a bad mood. She refused cleanly and sharply. I do have time now, but I don't want to see you. He Qinghua hadn't expected Hiyu to say such a thing and gritted her teeth in anger. At this point, any casual remark could infuriate her, fueled by her intense jealousy and deep resentment. She was jealous of Hiyu's height and appearance, and resentful that after she had snatched Li Junyi, Hiyu had immediately picked up a Mu Qianfan. She took a deep breath and pulled out her trump card. Hiyu, don't you want to know who her father is? What did you say? Hiyu was startled. She had always dreamed of knowing who her biological father was, wanting to understand why he had abandoned her and her mother. He Qinghua coaxed her. We know information about your father. Come out, and I'll tell you. He was not an indestructible person. She also had her weaknesses, such as the ring she wore around her neck, and news of her biological father. So she agreed to meet, quickly got ready and left, finding the gaudily dressed He Qinghua in a coffee shop. He Qinghua scrutinized Hiyu, then sneered. She had thought Mu Qianfan would be more generous, but he was still wearing cheap clothes. However, her cheap attire, paired with branded shoes, wasn't an eyesore, because her inherent radiance was enough to overshadow those items. In other words, others wouldn't overlook her inherent beauty just because she wore inexpensive clothes. This was a level He Qinghua could never achieve, even with designer brands. He sat down opposite He Qinghua. Although she had come for information, her face still conveyed an air of detachment and indifference, an expression that others perceived as aloof. Such an aura wasn't something one could simply acquire. He Qinghua had been trying hard recently, but Li Shuai said she hadn't changed at all, and was still just a cheap face. He Qinghua's unconcealed envy, jealousy, and hatred made Hiyu frown slightly. She disliked such gazes intensely. She wasn't in the mood for pleasantries with He Qinghua and said straightforwardly, "What's your actual purpose for finding me? Just say it directly." With her intentions exposed by Hiyu, He Qinghua didn't feel embarrassed. She had known all along that with Hiyu's intelligence, it was impossible for her not to guess that she had an ulterior motive. He Qinghua didn't beat around the bush either, making her demand directly. Withdraw from the new talent competition, or forget about ever knowing anything about your biological father. Hiyu ordered a cup of coffee, stirring it lightly while glancing sideways at He Qinghua. Are you threatening me? He Qinghua sneered. So, what if I am threatening you? I don't believe you don't want to know whose offspring you are, and why he planted his seed only to abandon you. Hiyu had indeed been a bit impulsive when she left home, but she had calmed down on the way, carefully analyzing the veracity of He Qinghua's claim about the information in the car. Although she had never met her mother, it was said that her grandmother was the last person to see her mother, and that ring was also personally given to her by her grandmother, who told her to protect it carefully. He Jiaqiang and He Anren's sibling relationship wasn't good. In such circumstances, how could she have told him about Hiyu's biological father? How could He Qinghua possibly know then? He replied, if you're threatening me, then I regret to inform you that you don't have the leverage for it yet. My impulsiveness was only momentary. However, this momentary impulsiveness had revealed He Qinghua's true intentions, so it wasn't a wasted trip after all. He Qinghua didn't understand Hiyu's meaning and retorted exasperatedly, what do you mean I don't have the leverage? Hiyu had no intention of leaving so soon. She took a leisurely sip of coffee and said, you don't actually know anything about my father, you're just using that to trick me into coming out. You. Although He Qinghua didn't admit it, her expression betrayed her, yet she stubbornly insisted. How could I not know? He didn't pursue the topic further. There's no way I'm withdrawing from the competition. You'd best not give up halfway either. I'm really looking forward to meeting you on stage. He Qinghua roared, flushed with anger and shame. Do you really think you can beat me? Hiyu's lips curved slightly. Whether I can beat you or not, we'll see on stage. I'm not in a hurry, are you? If you are, turn left ahead. He Qinghua looked ahead confusedly. What do you mean? The curve of Hiyu's lips slowly widened. The restroom. Only then did He Qinghua realize she had been tricked by Hiyu. You just wait, I won't let you off easy. Hiyu reached up and scratched her ear. Why does that sound so familiar? Oh, right, your fiancé seems to love saying that exact phrase. You. He Qinghua pointed a trembling finger at Hiyu, unable to utter a complete sentence for a long time. She was practically fuming with rage. He Qinghua, who had initiated the meeting to threaten Hiyu into withdrawing from the competition, ended up slamming the door and leaving in a fit of pique, while Hiyu stayed, listening to music and sipping coffee. Hiyu messaged Mu Qianfan, telling him that He Qinghua had come to see her and also her decision. Nowadays, she often proactively reported situations to him. Mu Qianfan's weekend was still busy, but no matter how busy he was, he would always reply to Hiyu's messages promptly. He even paused meetings to check her messages first. The couple continued exchanging messages intermittently, like this. As soon as He Qinghua returned home, she pointed at He Jiaqiang and yelled, it's all your fault. Why didn't you ask clearly back then whose bastard offspring that wild child is? He Jiaqiang's business had recently run into trouble, and he could only barely maintain a facade of prosperity, with Li Junyi's help. He didn't even dare to speak up when He Qinghua pointed her finger at his nose and cursed him. Li Junyi only helped him because of He Qinghua, so how could he dare offend her? But what he couldn't understand was why his business was having problems. Zhang Xiuwen, eager to protect her husband, scolded, is that how you talk to your father? He Qinghua immediately turned her attack on Zhang Xiuwen. How do you expect me to talk? If you hadn't made me so short, would I be bullied? He Jianhao scoffed. You're short and you blame others? Aren't you just incompetent if you get bullied? He Qingwa retorted to anyone and everyone. What right do you have to criticize me? You do nothing but eat, drink, gamble, and whore around. You're utterly useless. He Jianhao, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, flew into a rage and slapped He Qingwa. I hate it most when you call me useless. He Qingwa shrieked. You dare hit me, you bastard. The He family descended into chaos. Mu Qianfan fled as if to the bathroom. Uh, I just got back. I'm going to take a shower first. You should calm down too. I'll accept whatever punishment you decide. He pulled the quilt over her head. So embarrassing. Even in a dream, she shouldn't have indulged Mu Qianfan, right? How is she ever going to face him now? Mu Qianfan was also calming down in the bathroom. He regretted his lack of restraint a little, very afraid that he would be disgusted by him because of it. A stolen kiss once was one thing, but this was already the second time. They were already married, and she had been growing closer to him. Their recent interactions proved it. Yet precisely at this critical juncture, he had made a mistake, crossing her bottom line. What to do? She wouldn't think he married her just to get her body, would she? Now that times had changed, she no longer needed him as a husband. Would she use this to suggest a divorce? Mu Qianfan was going crazy with anxiety. He lay muffled under the covers for a long while before gradually calming down. As for the kiss in the dream, recalling it now, she not only felt no disgust, but even a slight longing. This kiss, like Mu Qianfan's warmth and sense of security, was something she had once yearned for and now craved, but she was naturally reserved and not very good at expressing her feelings. Ultimately, she chose to keep quiet about it, pretending it was truly just a dream that had never happened in reality, to avoid awkwardness between them, as life had to go on after all. But with her saying nothing, no matter how clever Mu Qianfan was, he couldn't guess all her thoughts. He could only keep guessing, and the more he guessed, the more flustered he became, especially seeing that she wasn't even willing to talk to him. How could he know that he wasn't unwilling to talk to him, but rather didn't know what to say? Face-to-face interaction already required courage for her, unlike the simple and casual act of sending messages. After a few days of this, Mu Qianfan finally couldn't bear it anymore. He had returned to work at Jiren, and although he still went to Longfeng restaurant every noon to eat with him, something just felt off. That weekend at home, Mu Qianfan brought up the old topic. Hiyu, everything that happened that night was my fault. I sincerely apologize to you. You can punish me however you want, but can you please not give me the silent treatment? I'm not giving you the silent treatment. As soon as the kiss was mentioned, Hiyu became awkward, and her face flushed. And I told you, let's leave that matter behind. No one should bring it up again. Mu Qianfan's tone was a little wronged. If you're not giving me the silent treatment, then why do you ignore me? Seeing his expression, Hiyu felt a bit like rubbing her forehead. Am I ignoring you? Mu Qianfan. It was true that she wasn't exactly ignoring him. She would respond whenever he initiated a conversation. But he just felt something was wrong. Hiyu lowered her head, not daring to meet his gaze. You're not wrong. I am. I'm your wife. That was my responsibility, and I wasn't dutiful enough. Marital duties were absolutely a taboo topic for them. Once that issue was brought up, the conversation would basically end. Even Mu Qianfan didn't dare to touch upon it lightly. He quickly stopped the topic. All right, then let's pretend I said nothing, as long as you're not angry with me. He sighed. I'm not angry with you. Can you also promise not to bring this up again in the future? Mu Qianfan nodded solemnly. Okay. I promise you, I won't mention it again. After this conversation, the tension between Mu Qianfan and Hiyu eased slightly. Hiyu, who previously hadn't known what to say, would occasionally take the initiative to find topics to chat about with him. She used to be a lone wolf, with no friends or family, not good at expressing her feelings and thoughts. Now, for Mu Qianfan, she was trying hard to change. Mu Qianfan was now swayed by her every frown and smile. Her one smile could make him happy for half a day, and her one frown would send him into a spiral of anxious thoughts. However, all of this was confined to their home. Once outside, Mu Qianfan remained the unapproachable CEO. This was a matter of principle. His tenderness and affection belonged only to Hiyu. If he could, he would never want her to see his cold and ruthless side, but he knew it was impossible. His identity was like a ticking time bomb, bound to explode sooner or later. All he could do was to embed himself in her heart before it detonated. As long as he gained her acceptance, what did his identity matter? Or what other side he possessed? Nothing could separate them. With only a month left until the competition, news about it was already everywhere. On He Qingwan's side, not only did Li Xuei personally oversee things, but Huimei Company also provided her with substantial human and material resources, and there was a constant stream of hype surrounding her every day. From a pure and innocent persona to an overseas education, from being hailed as a timeless beauty to belonging to a scholarly family, even her relationship with Lee Junyi, which had started as an affair, was hyped up as a perfect match between a golden boy and a jade girl. Hee Ching-won's official Weibo account quickly gained followers. Any post she made would receive numerous comments and likes, and her popularity soared, leading her to be called the next Devon Aoki. In contrast, on Hiyu's side, neither Jarwin Company nor Xinhua Media released any news. She simply persisted in going to the practice room every day. Hee Ching-won deliberately brought Hiyu into the spotlight, dragging the past engagement party incident before the media, claiming he had stolen her boyfriend while she was abroad. However, such news would disappear shortly after it emerged. As long as it involved Mu Qianfan and Hiyu, any news would be suppressed and then removed. Mu Qianfan didn't want to put any pressure on Hiyu. She didn't want their marital relationship to be exposed, so he accommodated her wishes, and gradually Huimei Company stopped engaging in such tactics. One day, Mu Qianfan asked Hiyu, "The competition is coming soon. Are you nervous?" Hiyu shook her head. "This time is much better than last time. At least I'm not being forced, and I'm well prepared." Mu Qianfan saw that she was indeed quite relaxed, smiled, and asked again, "Do you have confidence then?" Hiyu thought for a moment. "Dealing with Hee Ching-won shouldn't be a problem, but whether I can win the championship, I don't know. After all, I don't know anything about the other contestants." Mu Qianfan comforted her. "It's all right. Just do your best and don't regret anything. But don't put too much pressure on yourself either. I believe in you." He looked at him with gentle eyes. "Thank you." Mu Qianfan sighed softly. "You're still so polite." Yang Yi suddenly received a notification that Hughes' qualification for the competition had been revoked, the reason being her poor conduct and improper private life. Not to mention it was a trumped-up charge. Even if it were true, it couldn't be a reason to cancel her qualification. Yang Yi was almost furious to death upon receiving the notice. He immediately called Mu Qianfan to report the situation but didn't tell Hiyu. However, Hee Ching-won sent the news to Hiyu. Hiyu was stunned by the message on her phone. She had considered not winning the championship, or even losing to Hee Ching-won, but she had never imagined losing her qualification. Remembering how Hee Ching-won had asked her to withdraw from the competition earlier, she immediately guessed that the Lee family was behind it. Hee Ching-won had also told her not to hit a rock with an egg, implying the Lee family was not to be trifled with. Hiyu then went to look for Mu Qianfan. On the way, she met Yang Yi and learned that he wasn't at Jarwin Company. He had been working at Xinhua Media recently. It was then she realized that Mu Qianfan had been coming to Longfeng restaurant every day at noon specifically to have lunch with her, but he had never mentioned this thoughtful gesture. This man was always like this. He never spoke about anything he did for her. But if he didn't say it, how would she know? She wasn't good at figuring things out herself. Hiyu collected herself and asked Yang Yi, "So, what do we do now?" Yang Yi was no longer anxious now. "I just contacted Mr. Mu. He'll find a way. Don't worry." Just as he was speaking, Mu Qianfan's call came in, and Hiyu quickly moved away from Yang Yi to answer it. Hiyu asked, still feeling uneasy. "Director Yang said there's no problem with my participation. Is that true?" Mu Qianfan solemnly promised. "Don't worry. What the Li family can do, I can do. And what they can't do, I can do even better." Hiyu suddenly let out a sigh of relief, and her tone became lighter. "I believe you." The same words, when repeated by Yang Yi, felt different from hearing them directly from Mu Qianfan. It wasn't that Hiyu didn't trust Yang Yi, but rather she couldn't find the same sense of security. Mu Qianfan glanced at his schedule. "I have something to do today, so I won't be able to join you for lunch. But you can go by yourself. I'll inform them beforehand." "No need to trouble yourself. I'll just eat at the company." Without him there, she didn't see the point in going. What she ate didn't really matter. The most important thing was the person by her side. "All right then, when I'm free, I'll take you to eat." Mu Qianfan didn't know why Hiyu chose not to go, but he genuinely didn't have time to accompany her today. As soon as Hiyu hung up and returned to the practice room, Hee Ching-won's call came in. "Did you see the message I sent?" Hiyu retorted. "So what if I saw it? Should I thank you for telling me?" Hee Ching-won cackled. "No need for that. I just wanted to see if you were crying." Hiyu sneered. "Oh, I'm sorry to disappoint you. My tears aren't that cheap." Hee Ching-won scoffed mockingly. "Not crying now? Are you planning to go home tonight and have a good cry in your man's arms?" Hiyu suddenly changed the subject, asking, "Do you have a wall there?" Hee Ching-won paused. "What do you mean?" Hiyu chuckled softly. "If you have a wall, lean on it, because I'm about to tell you some very unfortunate news." Hee Ching-won grew even more puzzled. "What news could you possibly have? Spit it out already." Hiyu said, enunciating each word, "Your wishful thinking has come to nothing. We'll see each other on the runway." The call ended. Hee Ching-won held her phone, stunned for a long time. wondering how he dared to say, "We'll see each other on the runway," with such certainty. This new talent competition not only had judges connected to the Lee Group, but the Lee Group was also one of the brand sponsors for the event. He didn't need to know all this because Mu Qianfan knew, and that was enough. He understood why Mu Qianfan didn't go to Longfeng restaurant for lunch with her. He was indeed very busy with work, and now this situation had suddenly arisen. She also understood why he didn't come home on time in the evening. Work engagements were reasonable. It would be abnormal if he came home punctually every day. But as she waited until midnight, growing drowsy, Mu Qianfan still hadn't returned. Only then did she start to worry, fearing that the Li family might be up to new tricks. She quickly took out her phone to call Mu Qianfan, but no one answered. When she called again, it was immediately hung up. Subsequent calls prompted a phone off message, and it remained off. He suddenly became afraid. Apart from Mu Qianfan being on a business trip, this was the first time since their marriage that he hadn't come home for the night, and she couldn't even reach him by phone. Had something happened? She quickly found Wenjin's number and called, but the person who answered was a man who claimed he didn't know Wenjin at all and that she had dialed the wrong number. Calling again yielded the same result.
How could this be?
She couldn't find Wenjin and couldn't contact Mu Qianfan. Had they fallen into the Li family's trap? The more he thought about it, the more flustered she became, and her hand holding the phone trembled. It was then that she suddenly realized how much she had come to care about Mu Qianfan without even realizing it.